Here we are between two sprints. I'm your host, Matt Tometz. We have Adam Rolfe, my co-host, and our guest of honor today, Syd. Her government name is Sydney, but Syd Milani. So between two sprints, I have to use all these features. Boom, there we are. So Sydney is a Team USA bobsled athlete. Her background is in track and field, running at Iowa State and Alabama. She was an All-American, super cool, super engaging, bubbly, an awesome kind of ambassador of 1080. I've enjoyed getting to know her, and I know the rest of the team has as well. So we are here to highlight her background, how she got into 1080, shed some light on bobsled. But admittedly, I do feel a little left out. I'm the only one not on a farm right now of the three of us, but that is neither here nor there. So thank you for joining us, Syd. Tell everyone how you're doing, anything about your background that you missed, and a little bit of the inside baseball about kind of bobsled, because we talked about this before, but we all know what it is, but like just what it's like actually kind of doing bobsled and your experience so far the last kind of three plus years.
Hey, Matt. Thank you. I'm doing good. I would say bobsled. I mean, it's kind of like we talked about before. Everyone kind of knows what it is, but the behind the scenes stuff is kind of an unknown to everybody. So if I had to tell anybody what being a bobsledder was like, I would tell them, one, it's dangerous. I mean, bobsled is a very dangerous sport. You know, we don't just jump in the sled and then pray. We actually have to drive the sled, and we have to do all our own sled work. So bobsled is very blue collar, and it's a huge team dynamic because the sleds are so heavy, and we're in charge of moving them everywhere, moving them to the line, to the top of the mountain, and it you can't move a sled without at least three people. So there's a lot that goes behind the scenes, and I'm excited to kind of teach everyone about it and let you know what goes on before the start line, I guess.
How heavy is a bobsled?
About 400 pounds.
Oh geez, crazy. And uh you're in the front of the bobsled, and you do all the complicated stuff. What's that position called?
So I'm currently transitioning to being a bobsled pilot. So
Pilot.
I do drive at the front of the sled, but the past 4 years I've been a brakeman. So I pushed and then got in and prayed. Um, yeah, I'm making the switch now, which I'm super excited about. It's kind of a natural progression to kind of start as a brakeman and then move your way to the front. The pilot is kind of the captain of the sled, if you will. And yeah, we're in charge of, you know, the lives of our brakemen and getting us down quickly and safely and doing all the finances, all the planning, all the delegating. So it's been a fun transition so far.
Fantastic. So thank you for setting the scene. Now we'll wind back the clock and kind of work from the past to kind of the present. So there's not too many 1080s in Iowa. I could probably count on my hand, but um, being at Alabama, having access to a 1080 sprint as part of the track team, but also the 1080 synchro. So being able to use kind of motorized resistance, all that data kind of in the weight room. Tell us a little bit about your experience first using it, or some of the big light bulbs of being an athlete kind of using it, as that's also part of the unique spin about our chat today. So kind of those first years at Alabama track, using it as an athlete, seeing your coach kind of use it to support them, kind of what was it like using both of those pieces as an athlete?
Yeah, when I was an athlete at Alabama, we started using the 1080, I believe my sophomore year. And the, when I was just an athlete, you know, I was just kind of dazzled by it, but I didn't really know what all went into it until I was kind of dueling. I was running track and I was interning in the weight room there. So I'm a super data driven person. So, you know, seeing the graph like on the iPad when we were doing stuff, I was always super nosy, just kind of curious about it. But you know, just from an athlete perspective, it was super fun, is what I'll say about it first. Just because, you know, we're all competitive, and in track and field, boys and girls train together most of the time. And I really liked how, you know, your load was personalized to you, but the goal was the same for everybody. So no matter if you were a guy or a girl, you were short, tall, like you could compete with everybody. And having that definitive data and being able to set goals and kind of work off of that in a team setting was just made practice so fun. Everyone looked forward to Fridays because that was our 1080 days.
Heck yeah. So then being an intern in the weight room, having the graph, having the competitiveness, having the individualization of the loads, kind of what was it like kind of training on the synchros? Because not only from your athlete perspective, but not too many people are kind of familiar with it. So it's just different thinking in terms of like barbells and dumbbells and plates to like kind of tapping a screen and getting all the data and stuff. So what do you think of the 1080 Syncro? How did that kind of support your development? Because you're still using it now, but yeah, let's hear your thoughts on the Syncro.
Yeah, the Syncro is such an awesome tool, and I believe the University of Alabama, if I'm speaking correctly, has the most Syncros of any other college. I don't know if I'm right on that or not, but I'm just going to say it because I'm biased and Alabama's better than everybody. But no, the Syncro is awesome. The resistance kind of adapts throughout the whole movement. So, like it's heavy when you're strong and it's lighter when you're vulnerable. And so unlike traditional barbell dumbbell movements, you were able to work through like kind of your sticky points and get, stronger where it really mattered, and, then be more conservative where it wasn't quite as do or die. And so, yeah, it really helped me get strong in the right areas. And I was able to hit those positional strengths a lot better. So, yeah, it definitely made a difference for me because when I was running track, for me personally, I was strong for an athlete, like strong comparable to the rest of my team, but I wasn't quite as fast. And so we were able to kind of pinpoint that using the 1080 sprint and the Syncro and adjust my speeds and my loads throughout the movement to kind of accommodate that. So it was really cool how, even for the opposite, for an athlete who was really fast but wasn't quite as strong, the workouts were very easily adjustable to everyone, even in a team setting in the weight room.
What kind of sticking on the Syncro, which is a lot of people do it for lower body workouts. What kind of things did you guys do in Bama? Like, just give the audience a little bit of understanding. Like, was that split squats? Was that bilateral 2-leg squats? What did you guys do?
Yeah, we did all kinds of stuff with the Syncros. We did a lot of split squats. We did a lot of single leg squats. We did glute bridges on the Syncros. One of my favorite exercises is we attached a belt to one of the lines and we would do like approach step ups on the box, resisted. So there's so much variability, and it really allows coaches to get creative with their movements and adjust things and experiment with what they think would benefit their team.
Would you guys use those once a week, twice a week for the Syncro? Like, I know there's different parts of the year, but what did that look like?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it varies depending on the time of year, but I would say we definitely use the Syncro once a week for like our heavier compound movements, like your back squats and stuff like that. And then, it would be sprinkled in throughout the week in our accessories, like those approach step ups that I talked about.
And then I'd be interested in diving into two specific examples that we talked about. So your first collaborative with us blew up. That did super, super well. And then another one that we kind of talked about. So I always describe like the 1080 sprint and the Syncro for that matter, and the cable for that matter, is it's just a motor and a line and data, and it has to support what you do. Like you still have to pick the loads, you have to interpret the data and kind of all this stuff. And I thought you had two super cool kind of anecdotes. First about kind of your hand placement on the sled, and then also trying to figure out what your optimal kind of body weight was, bulking, cutting, which I think is super high level, like bringing in the 1080 sprint to support kind of nutrition, kind of all that stuff. So if you could briefly kind of go through those two examples, I think that would be super cool to kind of show the simplicity of the tech with also the specificity of kind of bobsled. Sorenex built you this thing and kind of whatnot. So if you could tell us about those two anecdotes.
Oh yeah, this past year, leading up to the Olympics and the Olympic trials, it has been has been so fun, like from a data standpoint, because bobsled is a very weight sensitive sport. And so we do have to cut and gain weight throughout the year, which can make or break a performance. So for those of you who don't know, in bobsled, we have a weight minimum and a weight maximum. And you want to get as close to the weight maximum as possible, because the heavier you are, the faster you go down the hill. And you want that weight to be on the athletes, because if it's not on the athletes, we have to put the weight in the sled. And if you're pushing a heavier sled, you're slower. Your start time is going to be behind from the get-go, and your velocity is going to be slower, which compounds down the track throughout the run. So me personally, I'm 5'4", and I'm naturally, without having to try, very comfortably about 135 pounds. When I came into bobsled, they were like, you're going to need to gain some weight. You're too small. Because not only am I short, but I was very light for a bobsledder. So the past 4 years, I've been incrementally gaining weight. But this past year, leading up to the Olympics, they were kind of like, if you don't get heavier, we can't put you in a sled. Because whenever I raced, we had to put so much weight in the sled, and it really affected our start time. So, I was down. I was down for it. I was going to gain as much weight as I needed to. So, in this past year, I gained 20 pounds in 1 year. And, was that the smartest thing to do? It definitely, I would say the mass moves mass logic definitely affected my speed expression a lot. But I knew if I didn't do it and I didn't make the games, I would always blame being too light. So regardless if it was the right thing to do or not, I'm happy that I did it, because then I'll never wonder what if. But throughout that time, it was a very delicate balance between trying to stay fast and use the new strength and the new mass and all this accumulated tissue that I was experiencing in the right way. So yeah, throughout gaining the weight, we used the 1080 every 4 weeks, and we did variable load testing, just to make sure, I was strong at heavy loads and fast at light loads, and, everything in between. And that really affected the direction of my training phase to phase, which was so cool and interesting. Even when it didn't go well, it was still very educational for myself and my coaches. So we even got to a point where we used the 1080 behind my Sorinex sled. And because when you get to this level, progress, it's so fractional, and hundredths of a second matter in this sport. So we would kind of refine my push technique and the hit on the sled to hopefully make those fractional improvements. And what we found is not only am I short, so, my positions and my angles on the sled are going to look different from other bobsledders, but we were able to identify energy leaks. So when we hit the sled, it's kind of like a power clean. It's kind of like a slow, like shrug and then pull through, and then you switch your hands into a running position. And because I'm short, the cue in bobsled is always keep your hips close to the handles. You want to be as close and connected to the sled as possible. That way there's no disconnect and no energy leak. But because I'm so short, when I would connect my hips to the handles, I was really upright, versus someone who's taller. When they connect their hips to the handles, they were able to, be a little bit more hunched over, and it looked a lot more natural. So we used the 1080 and were able to see like my horizontal direction just wasn't there when I used that cue. So it changed the way I pushed, which in the bobsled world, there's a way to do things. So, but it was fun because when I did change things, and maybe it was controversial, but I was able to back that up with the 1080 data. And so I got to a point where I was a little bit disconnected from the sled, but I was still faster. So, and the 1080 was able to prove that. It was able to tell us that. And then the next interesting thing that we saw is when I was switching my hands on the handles, I kind of stopped applying force and got a little bit more upright, and then kind of hunkered down and pushed. So we were able to track like where I stopped applying that force and where I lost my horizontal angles, and was able to train myself to keep pushing even when I was transitioning. So it complemented so many things, from the different calories that I was intaking to, you know, the different angles, and it fit my body type. So we were able to adjust. There was just so much cool stuff that we were able to identify.
Everything comes back to, like, am I getting faster, or in terms of like a body composition thing, like how are my watts per kg? And just like you said, it's like, well, this isn't how it's always done, but hey, it's working. And that's why we're here, right? So
Mm-hmm.
just to be able to support that, I'm sure from a coach standpoint, so they're like, oh, it's working. And then yourself to, like, you know, keep like seeing the results and believing, kind of doing all that stuff. And not that every phase goes straight up, kind of like you said, you know, but just how it supports you and your coach with what you're doing, which is the power of how relatively simple kind of the tech is. So thank you for sharing those anecdotes.
First of all, give your awesome coaches some shout out. Give them some love, because it sounds like you guys have been working really close together to figure this out and make you the best you possibly can. Who are these awesome people?
Oh my God. I'm the most blessed person in the world. So, you know, when you come back and, you know, run or compete post collegiately, like, I kind of feel like it's a process, and, you know, you have to pay your coaches and stuff like that. But so Coach Blaine Wiley was my track coach. But the man who really made the difference for me was JD O'Brien, and he's an assistant football coach at Alabama and does the strength and conditioning for the track team, and he's my personal coach. And, you know, he got permission from Coach Ballou, so shout out to Coach Ballou too, because the man lets me run around and train and, you know, help coach. And the whole staff at Alabama has just been like brothers and second dads to me. So I'm just overwhelmingly like blessed to have them in my life. But JD is definitely the man who, you know, despite having two very large teams to work with, and, you know, he has a wife and twins at home, and he's a huge family man. So he has so much going on, yet he took me under his wing, and he lets me share an office with him, and he lets me, you know, put my bag all over his couch in his office. And, you know, I probably bug the shit out of him sometimes, but he's always been the most, not only like my most consistent and studious like rock throughout this whole thing, but he's also one of the most tenacious and smartest, not only people but coaches that I know. He is he's so smart, and he does everything so meticulously. And he'll come out during his breaks when he's supposed to be, you know, eating or something, and he'll watch me push, and he'll kind of break things down. Because when we were going through all of that confusion with like the push and trying to identify the data and stuff, you know, there was a period of uncertainty, and I would come in from the track, like into his office, like kind of nearly in tears, because I was just so frustrated. I was like, the Olympics are coming up, and I feel like I still haven't figured this out. Like, I'm I'm so irritated. And, you know, he'd come out to the track, and he'd take that time and identify what he thought was working and what wasn't working. And he's the most amazing person I know. I love that man.
Awesome shout out. We'll have to send this their way for sure. So, and then we have to give you a shout out as well, and give you an opportunity or I'll roll out the red carpet, and you can plug whatever you have to plug. Where can the people get more of Syd Milani as we wrap this thing up?
I guess I'm pretty active on Instagram, I guess. but no, definitely. I mean, like Matt said, I'm a 1080 ambassador, so go get yourself a 1080 and maybe we'll talk.
We didn't pay her to say that. She said, not us. This was super awesome, super cool stories. Again, I've enjoyed our kind of chats in the past. Look forward to getting you on the IG even more, and kind of following along your journey. So thank you very much again, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.